The stars outside the window of the warship burned cold and distant. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Lyra stood quietly by the heavy metal door of the prison cell. She was an alien woman from the planet Varel, a world known for its strict discipline and sharp warriors. Her skin shimmered with soft silver scales, and her eyes glowed faintly green in the dim light. She was one of the ship's guards, loyal to her people and proud of her duty. Inside the cell was the prisoner, a human. Lyra had never seen one before, but she had heard many stories. To most aliens, humans were strange and dangerous creatures. They were said to be fierce fighters, wild and unpredictable, sometimes called monsters because of their strength and stubbornness. The stories frightened many, and Lyra was no different. The prisoner sat on the cold floor, his back against the wall. He looked tired but calm. His skin was pale and marked with scars. His dark hair was messy, falling over his forehead. His eyes were a clear blue, steady and watchful. Despite his rough appearance, he did not struggle or shout. He simply waited. Lyra watched him closely. She was supposed to keep him locked up and under control until the next orders came. She did not trust him. To her, he looked like a threat. But something about him did not fit the image of a wild monster. There was a quiet strength in his eyes and a calm that did not belong to a prisoner filled with fear or rage. The ship was on a long journey, moving through deep space after a raid on a human colony. The humans had fought hard, but the aliens had captured this one man alive. Many wanted him kept in chains, a symbol of their victory. But Lyra was not sure what to think. The ship's corridors were cold and dark. Lyra's footsteps echoed as she walked away from the cell to report to her captain. She kept thinking about the human. What was his story? Why was he so silent? Was he really a monster as the others said? Or was there more to him? Later, in the small room where the captain waited, Lyra gave her report. "The prisoner is secure," she said. "He shows no signs of aggression, but I believe he is dangerous. We should watch him closely." The captain, a tall alien with sharp horns and dark eyes, nodded. "Humans are strong and clever," he said. "We must not underestimate him. Keep him locked and do not trust his silence." Lyra returned to her post outside the cell. She sat nearby, eyes never leaving the prisoner. Hours passed, and still he said nothing. Sometimes he closed his eyes as if resting, but always alert. One night, as the ship hummed through space, alarms suddenly sounded. Red lights flashed. The ship shook. Lyra jumped to her feet, heart pounding. There was an emergency. Something was wrong. She heard shouting from the hallways. An accident in the engine room. The ship might lose power. The captain ordered all available crew to help. Lyra looked at the prisoner. For a moment she hesitated. Could she trust him? The rules said no, but something inside her urged her to act. She unlocked the cell and said, "Come with me. Help is needed." The prisoner stood slowly, his movements calm and sure. He followed her through the ship's narrow halls. Together, they rushed toward the engine room. When they arrived, chaos filled the air. Sparks flew from damaged panels. Smoke filled the room. Several crew members worked desperately to fix the problems, but the damage was severe. The prisoner stepped forward. Without a word, he examined the controls. His hands moved quickly over the panels, pressing buttons and adjusting switches. The crew watched in surprise. Lyra stayed close, heart racing. Was he helping or making things worse? Minutes passed, and slowly the smoke cleared. The alarm stopped. Power began to return. The engine stabilized. A cheer rose from the crew. Lyra looked at the human prisoner. He gave a small nod, his calm blue eyes meeting hers. In that moment, her fear began to fade. This was not a monster. This was someone who could help. Someone strong but not wild. Back at her post, Lyra sat quietly, thinking about what she had seen. The human's silence was not fear or anger. It was patience and skill. Maybe the stories were wrong. Maybe humans were not monsters after all. But she knew the ship's crew would not see it that way. The rumors were strong. Fear was deep. It would take more than one act of bravery to change their minds. Still, for the first time, Lyra felt a strange hope. Maybe this prisoner was not just a captive, maybe he was a key to something greater. The stars outside the window continued to shine, cold and distant, but inside the ship something new had begun, a quiet connection between two very different beings. After the engine room crisis, the ship settled back into its steady hum. Lyra sat alone in the dim corridor outside the prisoner's cell, or no. Thoughts kept returning to the human she once thought a monster. His calm in the face of danger was unlike anything she had expected. The crew whispered about the prisoner now. Some were surprised by his actions. Others still feared him. But Lyra was determined to learn more. She wanted to understand who this human really was. The next day, Lyra was ordered to transfer the prisoner to a different part of the ship. The new holding area was stricter, with fewer guards. The captain warned her again. Do not trust him. Humans are cunning. They wait for a chance to strike. Lyra nodded, but inside, her mind was restless. She opened the heavy door of the cell. The prisoner stood quietly, watching her. His eyes held a calm patience, as if he knew this journey was part of a larger story. As they moved through the corridors, Lyra noticed how the prisoner observed everything. His gaze was sharp and thoughtful. He seemed to understand the ship better than many crew members. Suddenly, the ship's communication system crackled to life. The captain's voice came through the speakers. Prepare for possible contact with enemy forces. Stay alert. Lyra felt a chill. The ship had been traveling in dangerous space. An attack could come at any moment. She glanced at the prisoner. Do you know how to fight? She asked quietly. He looked at her, his blue eyes steady. I survived many battles, he said simply. Lyra felt a flicker of respect. This was no ordinary captive. Later that evening, Lyra sat in her quarters. She looked out at the stars and thought about the stories she had heard about humans. To many aliens, humans were fierce and cruel warriors. Some said humans fought without honor. Others said they were reckless and wild. But the prisoner did not seem like that. He was quiet, calm, and thoughtful. His strength was clear, but so was his self-control. She remembered the moment in the engine room when he had saved the ship. That act had changed everything for her. The next day, Lyra found herself drawn to the prisoner's cell again. She had been assigned to watch him closely, but she also wanted to talk, to understand. She approached the cell and said, Tell me about your home. Why are humans so different from us? The prisoner looked surprised. No one had asked him that before. He sat down slowly and began to speak in a low voice. Humans come from a planet called Earth. It is full of life and beauty, but it is also full of struggle. We fight because we must survive. We protect those we love. Lyra listened carefully. His words were simple, but they carried deep meaning. In my world, he continued, there are many kinds of people. Some are kind, some are cruel. But all of us share hope. Hope for a better future. Lyra thought about her own people, the strict rules and rigid discipline of Varel. Could humans really be so different? Could they have hope even in war? She nodded slowly. On Varel, we believe strength is everything, but your words speak of something more. Days passed, and Lyra and the prisoner continued their quiet talks. She learned about human families, their struggles, and their dreams. He told her of Earth's oceans, forests, and cities, places she had never seen. One day, the ship's sensors detected movement in nearby space. The captain called for all hands on deck. An enemy fleet was approaching. Lyra prepared for battle, her heart pounding. She looked at the prisoner, now more a mystery than a threat. When the battle began, the ship shook under enemy fire. The crew worked quickly to defend their home. But the enemy was strong and well prepared. Lyra saw the prisoner move toward the command center. Without hesitation, he took control of a defense station. His hands flew over the controls with skill and speed. His actions saved the ship from destruction. Laser blasts were deflected, and enemy fighters were pushed back. The crew cheered. Even the captain looked surprised and proud. After the battle, Lyra found the prisoner again. "You are not what I expected," she said quietly. He smiled faintly. "Nor I what you expected, I think." Lyra nodded. "Tell me, why did you not fight? Like a monster? Why did you protect us?" The prisoner looked at her thoughtfully. "Because strength without control is chaos. True strength is knowing when to fight and when to protect." Lyra felt a deep respect growing inside her. The human prisoner was not a monster. He was something more, a survivor, a warrior with honor. That night, as the ship sailed on through dark space, Lyra sat by the window and thought about what she had learned. Fear was easy, but understanding was harder. She wanted to know more about this strange being from Earth. The human prisoner had changed her view of humanity. He showed her that behind every legend and story, there was truth waiting to be discovered, and Lyra was ready to find that truth. The warship moved silently through the cold depths of space. Inside, the air was thick with tension and quiet whispers. The crew still talked about the human prisoner, but their voices were softer now. Some called him a hero, others still held on to their fears. But none could ignore the change he brought to the ship. Lyra stood near the prisoner's cell, watching him carefully. Over the past days, her feelings had shifted from suspicion to respect. Yet she still felt a cautious distance between them. Trust was hard to give, especially when years of fear and stories of war weighed heavily on her heart. The prisoner sat on the cold floor, calm as ever. His eyes met hers, clear and steady. For a moment, they shared silence, a quiet understanding, passing between them. Suddenly, a loud explosion shook the ship. The walls rattled and alarms blared. The enemy was attacking again. This time, the threat was closer, more dangerous. Lyra moved quickly, her training taking over. She rushed to the command center, where chaos reigned. Crew members shouted orders and scrambled to defend their home. The prisoner followed her, moving with surprising speed. Lyra noticed how he scanned the room, analyzing the situation with sharp eyes. He stepped forward without hesitation and helped reroute power to the ship's shields. The crew paused in surprise. Here was a prisoner, a human, helping save them once more. The enemy fire grew stronger. Explosions rocked the ship's hull. Smoke filled the corridors. But the human remained calm, focused on the task. Lyra fought beside him, using her strength and skill to protect the wounded. She could feel her fear melting into something new, determination. When the attack finally ended, the ship was damaged but still flying. The crew was exhausted but alive. In the quiet aftermath, Lyra found herself beside the prisoner again. "You saved many lives today," she said quietly. He looked at her, tired but calm. "I did what I must," he replied. "No one should die if it can be helped." Lyra nodded, feeling warmth she had not known before. The prisoner's words were simple but full of meaning. They spoke of hope and care in a world filled with war. Days passed, and Lyra found reasons to be near the prisoner more often. She brought him food and water, watched over him during the long nights, and listened when he spoke. One evening, the prisoner spoke softly. "I don't know much about your people, Lyra, but I see your strength and loyalty. You fight not just for yourself but for your crew. That is honorable." Lyra smiled faintly. "We do what we must, but many see humans as wild beasts, without honor." He shook his head. "Stories are easy to spread, but they can be wrong. I hope you will see the truth about my people someday." Their talks grew longer, deeper. They shared stories of their worlds, the alien forests and mountains of Virel, the blue oceans and green lands of Earth. Lyra learned about human families, their joys and pains, their hopes and fears. She saw that beneath the rough skin and scars were hearts much like her own. One night, as the ship drifted near a small planet, the prisoner asked, "Can I see the stars from your world one day?" Lyra's eyes shone. "Maybe. If the war ends and peace comes." She paused. "You have changed my view of humans. You are not the monster I feared. He smiled softly. Nor are you the enemy I expected. Their connection was fragile but real, a bridge between two very different beings. But peace was still far away. The captain called a meeting. The ship's sensors had detected a fleet of hostile ships closing in fast. They were outnumbered and outgunned. Lyra looked around the room. Feeling the weight of responsibility, she thought of the prisoner beside her, the man she had come to respect. The captain's voice was firm. We must prepare for battle. Everyone must fight for survival. Lyra turned to the prisoner. Will you fight with us? He nodded. If it means protecting life, I will fight. The crew began readying weapons and defenses. The human prisoner was given a weapon, simple but powerful. Lyra stood beside him as the battle began. The stars outside lit up with fire and flashes of light. The enemy ships launched wave after wave of attacks. Lyra fought with all her strength, her body moving with skill and precision. Beside her, the human prisoner fought too, not like a wild beast, but like a warrior with honor. They moved as one, protecting the ship and each other. During a moment of quiet, Lyra saw the prisoner save, a young alien who had been knocked down. Without hesitation, he lifted her up and guided her to safety. The crew watched in awe. The human was not a monster. He was a hero. When the battle ended, the ship was battered but alive. The enemy had retreated. Lyra and the prisoner stood together, breathing hard but proud. You fought well, Lyra said softly. So did you, he replied. In that moment, the gap between alien and human seemed smaller. Fear and suspicion gave way to trust and respect. Lyra knew there were many challenges ahead, but for the first time, she believed in a future where they could stand side by side. The stars outside shone quietly, as if watching the beginning of a new story, one of courage, hope, and fragile friendship. The ship was quiet now, but the tension inside did not fade. The crew worked hard to repair the damage from the recent battle. Every hallway smelled of smoke and oil. Sparks flew from machines being fixed, and voices filled the corridors. Lyra moved through the ship with purpose. She could feel the eyes of the crew on her. Some curious, some doubtful. They still struggled to accept the human prisoner who had proven himself in battle. Many whispered that he was lucky, or that his true nature had not yet shown. But Lyra knew better. She had seen the strength behind his calm. She had watched his actions, steady and sure. He was not a monster. He was something rare. A human, with skill, honor, and heart. The prisoner was in a new part of the ship now, the maintenance bay. It was filled with machines and control panels, places where few aliens dared to go. But he moved through it like he belonged. Lyra followed, curious. The captain had assigned the prisoner to help with repairs. No one else had the knowledge to fix the damaged engines and systems so quickly. The prisoner knelt before a complex panel. His hands moved over wires and switches, adjusting, repairing. Sparks flew as he worked, but he did not stop. Lyra watched closely. The prisoner was patient, focused. His knowledge was deep, unlike anything she had seen from the crew. A young alien technician approached nervously. How do you know so much? She asked. The prisoner looked up and smiled gently. I learned from many places. On Earth, we build and fix machines every day. It is how we survive. The technician nodded, impressed. She stayed to help, and soon others joined. The prisoner taught them new ways to repair the ship faster and better. Word spread quickly. The human was no longer just a prisoner. He was becoming a leader, a teacher. Lyra felt proud. She had believed in him when others had not. But the captain was still cautious. One evening, Lyra entered the captain's quarters. The room was dark, lit only by the stars shining through the window. The crew talks, the captain said without turning. They are divided. Some respect the human, others fear him. We must be careful. Lyra nodded. He is helping us survive. His strength is not just in battle, but in knowledge. The captain sighed. Humans are strange. We do not fully understand them. but your faith in him is noted." Lyra left the room feeling the weight of her task. She knew that winning the crew's trust would be harder than any battle. The next day, an emergency alarm sounded. A sudden storm of space debris was heading toward the ship. If the shields failed, the damage could be fatal. Lyra ran to the control room, where the prisoner was already working. His eyes scanned the readouts quickly. "We must strengthen the shields," he said calmly. "I can reroute power to the front, but it will leave the back weaker." The captain gave the order. The prisoner and Lyra worked side by side, directing, power and adjusting systems. The storm hit hard. Rocks and metal slammed against the ship's shield. The crew held their breath. The shields flickered but held strong. The ship survived. After the storm passed, the crew cheered. The prisoner smiled quietly. Lyra turned to him. "You saved us again." He shook his head. "I only did what I could. The ship is stronger because we worked together." That night, Lyra sat with the prisoner in the quiet hallways. She asked, "How do you stay so calm in danger?" He looked at her and said, "I have learned that fear only makes things worse. To survive, you must stay calm and think clearly." Lyra thought about her own people's ways. They valued strength and power, but sometimes forgot patience and care. The prisoner's words made her wonder if strength was more than just fighting. Maybe true strength was in knowing when to act and when to wait. The days passed, and the prisoner continued to teach and help. He showed the crew how to work better as a team. Slowly, the walls of fear and hate began to break down. One afternoon, the prisoner approached Lyra with a small device in his hands. "This is from my world," he said. "It helps us communicate. Maybe it can help us understand each other better." Lyra took the device, curious. She saw images and heard sounds from Earth. Mountains, oceans, forests. The prisoner smiled. "There is more to my people than war. There is beauty and peace." Lyra's eyes filled with hope. Maybe the future could be different. Maybe humans and aliens could learn to live together. But she knew the journey would be long. The fear in the crew, the hatred between worlds. These were not easy to overcome. Still, she believed in the prisoner. She believed in the human who had shown her a new kind of strength. The stars outside the ship shone quietly. Inside, a small light of hope burned brighter every day. The warship floated through the vast emptiness of space. Inside, the hum of engines was a steady reminder of life moving forward. The crew had grown quieter in recent days, their thoughts heavy with worry about the future. Yet among the tensions and repairs, something new was growing. A fragile friendship between two very different beings. Lyra moved through the ship's corridors, carrying a small tray with food and water. She walked toward the prisoner's cell, her heart beating with a strange mix of hope and caution. Over time, her feelings toward him had changed completely. From fear and suspicion, they had softened into respect and something like trust. When she reached the cell, the prisoner was waiting. His calm blue eyes looked up as she entered. "Thank you," he said simply. Lyra smiled gently. "I bring food. You need strength." He nodded. "I appreciate it." For a moment they sat in silence. The walls between them were still there, but thinner now. The prisoner's presence was no longer a threat, but a comfort in the cold darkness of space. "Want to understand more," Lyra said quietly, "about your people, about Earth." The prisoner looked thoughtful. "There is much to tell." He began to speak slowly, his voice steady, but soft. He told her about his home planet, blue oceans, green forests, tall mountains, and wide deserts. He described cities full of light and life, where millions of people lived in close spaces yet still found time to care for each other. Lyra listened closely. The images he painted were unlike anything she had seen or imagined. The beauty of Earth touched something deep inside her. "But your people fight," she said. "Why?" He sighed. "Because life is not easy. We face dangers every day. Disease, hunger, war. Sometimes we fight to protect those we love. Sometimes we fight to survive." Lyra nodded. "We fight too. But sometimes, I wonder if fighting is the only way. The prisoner smiled faintly. There is more to life than fighting. There is hope, friendship, love. Lyra's eyes softened. I want to believe that. They spoke for hours, sharing stories of their lives, their worlds, and their dreams. Lyra told him about the forests, of Varel, where silver trees glowed under twin moons. She spoke of her people's code of honor and loyalty, of battles fought to protect their home. The prisoner shared tales of Earth's struggles and triumphs, of ordinary people who became heroes through kindness and courage. Their words built a bridge across the vast distance between their worlds. One day the ship received a message from a distant outpost. It was a call for help, a distress signal from a nearby colony under attack. The captain gathered the crew to decide their next move. The crew was divided. Some wanted to ignore the call and continue their journey. Others believed they had a duty to help. Lyra stood with the prisoners and the engineers. We must help, she said firmly. We have the strength to protect others. The captain nodded slowly. Prepare the ship. We will assist the colony. The prisoner approached Lyra. I want to help, he said quietly. She smiled. You already do. As the ship changed course, the crew worked together like never before. The human prisoner was no longer a captive but a valued member of the team. The journey was tense. Everyone knew danger awaited. When they arrived, the colony was under heavy attack. Enemy ships bombarded the surface, causing fires and destruction. Lyra and the prisoner stood on the bridge watching the chaos unfold. The captain gave orders. We will defend the colony. Shields up, weapons ready. The battle was fierce. Laser beams flashed across the sky. Explosions rocked the ground. The colony's defenders fought bravely, but were outnumbered. Lyra turned to the prisoner. Now is the time to prove yourself. He nodded and moved to the weapons control station. His hands moved quickly, targeting enemy ships with precision. His knowledge of their tactics gave the crew an advantage. Together, Lyra and the prisoner coordinated the defense. The crew's morale lifted as they saw the prisoner's skill and courage. Slowly, the enemy retreated, their ships damaged and scattered. The colony was saved. Cheers and relief filled the ship. Lyra looked at the prisoner with pride. You have changed many minds today. He smiled softly. I only want peace. That night, the prisoner asked Lyra to walk with him through the ship's quiet halls. They talked about the future, about hope for peace between their peoples, about dreams of a better life. Lyra felt a warmth in her heart. The journey was still difficult, but with the prisoner by her side, she believed they could face anything. As they stood looking out at the stars, Lyra whispered, "Thank you for trusting me." He reached out and gently touched her hand. "Thank you for seeing me." The warship sailed on through the endless night, carrying with it the fragile promise of friendship and hope. The warship drifted silently through the vast darkness of space, its engines humming a steady rhythm. But beneath the calm surface, tension simmered. The crew was restless. Many still doubted the human prisoner's loyalty, while others quietly admired his courage and wisdom. The lines between friend and foe blurred with every passing day. Lyra stood on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. Her mind was heavy with thoughts of the prisoner and the uncertain future ahead. She had come to trust him deeply, but the world around them was still full of danger and suspicion. Suddenly, the alarm sounded again. This time it was not an attack from outside, but an uprising within the ship. A group of corrupt officers, fearing the prisoner's influence, had taken control of the security forces. They planned to imprison all the prisoners permanently. And worse, they intended to sacrifice some to keep their own power. Lyra's heart raced as she raced through the corridors. She knew the prisoner was the key to stopping the rebellion. She found him preparing for the fight ahead, his calm face steady as ever. "We must act quickly," he said. "They want to break us, to make us powerless, Lyra nodded. I am with you. Together they moved through the ship, gathering allies among the crew and prisoners. Word spread quickly, and soon a small group stood ready to fight for justice and freedom. The rebellion's leaders tried to block their way, but Lyra and the prisoner were not afraid. With skill and courage, they fought through the guards, freeing prisoners and reclaiming control of the ship. The crew watched in awe as the prisoner led the charge, not with rage but with calm strength. His voice inspired hope, and his actions showed honor. In the great hall, the prisoner faced the captain of the rebels, a fierce alien with cold eyes and a cruel smile. Your reign ends here, the prisoner said firmly. The captain laughed. You think a human can stop me? Lyra stepped forward, her voice strong. Together we can. The battle was fierce but short. The rebels were defeated, their plans broken. The ship was free again. After the fight, the crew gathered in the hall. The captain of the ship, a wise and fair leader, stood before them. We owe our thanks to this human, he said, gesturing to the prisoner. He saved our lives and our freedom. The crowd erupted in cheers. The prisoner nodded humbly, but his eyes met Lyra's, filled with gratitude. That night, as the ship sailed through the stars, Lyra and the prisoner stood side by side. We have broken chains, he said quietly. But the hardest chains to break are those in our minds. Lyra smiled softly. Fear and hate can be strong, but hope is stronger. They spoke of the future, of peace and unity between their peoples. They dreamed of a time when humans and aliens could live without fear, without war. The prisoner shared stories of Earth's history, of struggles and triumphs, of people who fought not with weapons but with kindness and courage. Lyra shared the tales of Varel's past, of warriors who learned that strength was not just in battle but in honor and heart. Their bond grew deeper, built on shared secrets and dreams. But they both knew that the road ahead was long and difficult. The warship was no longer just a prison or a battleground. It had become a place of hope, a symbol that even in the darkest times light could shine. As they looked out at the stars, Lyra whispered, "Thank you for showing me a new way." The prisoner smiled. "Thank you for believing in me." The stars twinkled softly as if watching the beginning of a new journey. A journey toward peace, trust, and a shared future. The warship sailed through the endless black of space, its engines humming steadily as it carried its crew toward a future unknown. The battles and struggles of the past weeks had left their marks on the ship and its people, but something deeper had begun to grow, a hope that stretched beyond stars and galaxies. Lyra stood on the bridge, looking out at the distant lights of a nearby planet. It was peaceful and bright, a small blue world that promised new beginnings. Beside her stood the human prisoner, no longer a captive, but a trusted ally and friend. The captain's voice broke the silence. "We will make contact with the planet's leaders. They have agreed to open talks for peace." Lyra turned to the prisoner, her silver eyes shining with hope. "Do you think they will listen?" He smiled gently. "They must. After all we have been through, we owe them peace." The journey to the planet was filled with quiet preparation. The crew worked together, repairing and strengthening the ship. Old fears began to fade, replaced by cautious optimism. The prisoner spent his time teaching and sharing stories with the crew. His knowledge of human history, culture, and technology fascinated the aliens. They listened with open minds, eager to learn. Lyra often found herself by his side, talking late into the night about dreams and fears, about home and hope. Their bond had grown beyond friendship. It was a connection that bridged worlds. Finally, the ship entered the planet's orbit. Below lay vast oceans, green forests, and shining cities. The sight filled the crew with awe. The captain called a meeting with the planet's leaders. Lyra and the prisoner stood together, ready to face the unknown. The talks began with caution. Old suspicions and mistrust filled the room. But the prisoner's calm words and honest heart slowly opened doors. He spoke of the pain of war, of the cost of hatred. He told stories of survival and forgiveness, of humans who chose peace over violence. Lyra shared her own people's hopes, their desire to protect and build a better future. Days turned into weeks. The leaders debated and listened. Slowly, agreements were made, promises to end hostilities, to work together, to build trust. The ship's crew celebrated. The prisoner smiled quietly, knowing that this was only the beginning. Later, as the sun set over the planet's horizon, Lyra and the prisoner stood outside the ship. The stars above were bright and clear. "You have changed everything," Lyra said softly. He looked at her, eyes full of warmth. "No, we changed together." She took his hand, feeling the strength and hope in their touch. The prisoner spoke of Earth's great journeys, of explorers and dreamers who crossed oceans and deserts to find new lands. "We are all explorers," he said, "searching for understanding, for connection." Lyra nodded. "And now we begin a new journey, together." The stars seemed to shine brighter as the warship prepared to land. It was not a ship of war anymore, but a ship of peace. As the two stood side by side looking toward the future, Lyra whispered, "Thank you for being my friend." He smiled, "And thank you for seeing me for who I really am." The ship's doors opened, welcoming the crew and their new allies. The world awaited them with open arms. The human prisoner, once thought a monster, had become a hero, a symbol of hope, courage, and unity. And as the warship touched the ground, a new chapter began. Not just for humans or aliens, but for all who dared to dream of peace among the stars.